Okay, there we go. It's loaded now. That was weird. Never seen that before. Okay, people were live. That was, I pressed the button and maybe because I went off the screen it didn't work. I don't know. It's bizarre. But we out here, live. Okay, so we're going to jump in here because we're like about a minute behind anyways, about a minute and a half I think, so let's just jump in.
Dispatch box a week ago, the government has been delivering for the British people.
Let me know if the audio's okay.
At the UK-France summit, we signed a new illegal immigration deal to protect our borders. Over the weekend, we facilitated the sale of Silicon Valley Bank at no cost to the taxpayer. And we have launched a submarine partnership with Australia and the US, launched our integrated review and boosted our defence budget. Mr. Speaker, this morning I had meetings with ministerial colleagues and others. In addition to my duties in this House, I shall have further such meetings later today.
Jessica Litz.
I mean, the agreement with France is a bit of a joke, to be honest, so...
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I've worked for years with women brought here illegally as sex slaves, raped by 30 men a day. Last week, the Prime Minister tweeted that these victims would be denied access to support from our modern slavery system. A tweet that traffickers will hold up to these women and say, see, no one will help you. Before the Prime Minister parrots his prepared answer about increases in the number of people accessing our modern slavery system, let me educate him and everyone else in this House that the biggest increase in the last 10 years has been from the huge increase in British adults and children trafficked for sex and crime within Britain. Not a number they should be proud of. How exactly will I help the next woman I meet brought here illegally from being repeatedly raped if she, as he tweeted, is denied access from our modern slaves?
So the government tweeted something on the lines of, if you come here illegally, you won't have access to the Modern Slavery Act. So what that means is you won't be protected effectively under the law, and if you do come forward, you will face deportation. Like, you will be not treated as a victim of a crime, but you'll be treated as the criminal. So it's going to be interesting to see what Dish Rishi comes out with.
Mr. Speaker, just to correct the Honourable Lady, it is actually now a minority of people in our modern slavery referral system that are from the UK. That was not the intention of the legislation when it was introduced. We have a proud record of supporting victims of modern slavery.
Do you have a proud record?
And thousands of victims are supported every year here in the UK, and that will not change as we grip illegal immigration.
Danny Kruger.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, the Home Secretary said that in recent decades the immigration to this country has been too high, and all the benches opposite howled their disapproval. They want higher immigration, not lower.
That's not true.
Does my honourable friend agree that what we need to do is, rather than importing cheap foreign labour, we need to invest in the skills of our own young people and encourage businesses?
All right, do it then. Invest the money. Put the money into colleges. Put the money into schools. Oh wait, you cut them. So, this argument of we need to train our own. So what are you waiting for then? Who's stopping you from doing it? Who is stopping you from doing it? This Harry Potter looking villain. This other Harry Potter looking villain. Who's stopping you from investing the money?
Well, Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is right that we do need to encourage long-term investment in the domestic workforce. We'll hear more from this in the Chancellor later this afternoon, but the Department for Work and Pensions is directing support at sectors with labour shortages like construction and social care.
You're not directing support. You've changed the immigration rules for builders. That's what you've done. You've changed it so they're on the shortage list. So you haven't made it easier for people to become builders, to train in the field. What you've done is allowed, put it on the shortage list, which is fine, but there's no mechanism for people to train, for it to be easier for people to get building qualifications. What a joke.
Our new skills boot camps are part of a dramatic rebooting of our skills system to support workers to get the skills that they need.
We now come to Leader of the Opposition, Keir Starmer.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Last summer, the Prime Minister claimed he wanted to protect free speech.
If it's straight after, I might do it. I've got like some videos I need to put through editing though. That's the only thing. I've got like the big project video as well I need to sort out.
And put a stop to no platforming. So how concerned was he by last week's campaign by Tory MPs to cancel a broadcaster?
It's time for Gary Lineker.
Mr. Speaker, as I said at the time, the issues between Gary Lineker and the BBC were for them to resolve, and I'm very glad that they did, and we can look forward to watching Match of the Day again on our screens.
It's nonsense because Tory MPs were calling him for him to go. I think it was multiple Tory MPs were calling for him to go. So that's absolute garbage.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the sight of them howling with rage over a tweet, signing greening letters in their dozens, desperately trying to cancel a football highlight show, that should have been laughable. Instead, it led to a farcical weekend, with the national broadcast being accused of dancing to the government's tune by its own employees. Rather than blame everyone else, why doesn't he take some responsibility, stand up to his snowflake MPs, waging war on free speech?
I mean, he's not wrong. He's not wrong that if it's 40 plus, I mean, that's embarrassing. That in itself is embarrassing, but, you know, it's his MPs that did it.
Mr. Speaker, Mr. Speaker, just the usual political opportunism from the leader of the Labour Party. Because I don't know if he noticed. But actually first the Shadow Attorney General and then the Shadow Home Secretary actually...
I mean, I know I bring this up once every other week, right? But please, whoever is sorting out CNX glasses, if you can hear me right now, get him a different pair of frames. He looks so stupid. He looks like a child. That's it. He doesn't look like he looks like a child. That's what the glasses do. Like it just he looks like a 12-year-old.
Actually criticised the language that had been used in the tweet.
That's why the BBC. That's why the Labour MPs are so dumb, or the Prime Minister are dumb, because they did kind of criticise Lineker, saying this is not the language I would have used and things like that. So it's just the people like this is why I have no faith in the front bench, honestly.
But what a surprise! What a surprise! He saw the chance to jump on a political bandwagon and changed his mind.
Keir Starmer.
So, Mr. Speaker,
I'm not being funny. I think our constituents want to get to the budget. The more that you shout, the more you progress questions. So please, my constituents interested if yours are. Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, they want more of a Prime Minister who doesn't understand. You can disagree with what somebody says, but still defend their right to say it. If he doesn't understand that, we're in a real problem. Does he accept that people's concerns about the BBC have been made worse because the government chose to put a Tory donor with no broadcasting experience in charge of the BBC?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, as he well knows, the BBC chairman was appointed before I became Prime Minister.
Oh, see, classic dodge.
He was appointed.
Who's he appointed by, big man? Who's he appointed by?
And the same applies to this side. This budget matters to the people of this country. They want to hear it. Don't keep questions going longer than need be. Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, there was a rigorous, independent and long-established process. That appointment was supported by expert panel members as well as the cross-party DCMS Select Committee. Now, it's right. That process is being independently reviewed by the Office for Commissioner of Public Appointments, and we should allow that review to conclude.
The issue is that they didn't know at the time he was a Tory party donor, I think. They didn't know that he helped Boris Johnson get... They might have known he was a donor, actually, but they wouldn't have known he helped Boris Johnson get a loan of, I think it was around £500,000 or something like that, a credit facility. So Clearly the links between him and Johnson were a lot stronger than people thought.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, the problem is the chair of the BBC isn't just any old Tory donor. He's so close to the Prime Minister.
Order. Mr. Fabricant, I want you to be in for the budget. Cup of teas don't want to come that early.
Mr. Speaker, he's no ordinary Tory donor. He's so close to the Prime Minister, he's been described as his mentor. He helped arrange an £800,000 credit line for the former Prime Minister. A minor detail he forgot to tell the Select Committee, which scrutinised his appointment. Does the Prime Minister think that his friend's position is still tenable?
His friend's position. Yeah, that's pretty funny. It does kind of muddy the waters of how these people actually get the roles, given that they are friends of each other, which is always a bit suspicious. You would think that how would he be friends with all the best people for the role? It don't make sense.
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I've just said, the office for the independent office for Commissioner of Public Appointments is reviewing what was a rigorous independent process to appoint the chairman. Instead of prejudging and preempting that review, we should let it conclude and wait for the outcome. That is the right way to do things, and that's what the government will do.
Keir Starmer.
Mr. Speaker, when people with links to the Tory party somehow find themselves in senior positions at the BBC, it's important that their impartiality is seen to be beyond reproach. So has the Prime Minister received assurances that no one with links to the Tory party was lobbied by Tory MPs or involved in the decision that saw Match of the Day effectively cancelled?
Mr. Speaker, as I said, these are matters. These are matters for the BBC to resolve. And it's right. It's right that the BBC, as an important institution, takes its obligations to impartiality seriously. Right? I care about the integrity and impartiality of our institutions, the BBC, but also the civil service, Mr. Speaker. And it's right that those processes carry on properly. But what I would say to him on this matter, there is an independent review. It's right that that process concludes, and he would, I would hope, respect that process.
He comes here today with these mealy-mouthed platitudes, pretending the actions of his party are nothing to do with him. But the whole country saw how he kept quiet and hid behind the playground bullies while they tried to drive someone out simply for disagreeing with them. An impartial public broadcaster, free of government interference, is a crucial pillar in our country. But isn't that put at risk by the cancel culture addicts on his benches, the BBC leadership that caves into their demands, and a Prime Minister too weak to do anything about them?
Mr. Speaker, we're not going to take any lectures on cancel culture from the party opposite.
Don't know, but you man tried to get someone cancelled like this week. So, if anyone was looking at trying to do cancel culture, it'd be you guys. You're the ones who tell people to stick with politics, don't get stick with football, don't get involved in politics. Criticise Gary Neville and other people. So yeah, I'd definitely say it's you guys who are involved in the cancel culture more than anything.
But we know what this is about, and he's avoided it in 6 questions. The substance of the issue that this underlied this tweet. And that's what has he done in this past week. The only thing he and his party have done is voted against our bill to stop the boats, Mr. Speaker.
The bill's not going to stop the boats, Chief. It's not going to work. It's not going to work. You're not going to be able to deter people. The best thing you can do is set up a processing centre in France. Create safe and legal points of entry. That's the only way you'll stop the boats.
Siding with people smugglers over the British people. That's the substance.
If Cooper is correct and 3/4 of the people smugglers live in the UK, you've clearly not done your job properly at all, mate.
Of what's happened. Instead, what have we done is conclude a new migration deal with France, Mr. Speaker.
Okay.
We've managed to sign a new...
Is it going to change anything? No.
Defence partnership with our allies, the US and Australia. We've protected British startups and we have boosted defence spending. And that, Mr. Speaker, is what delivering for Britain looks like.
Can I just say to you, the biggest day in the House, and you want to carry on cheering? I'll tell you what, I'll be quiet. because there is plenty of room, as I've mentioned, in the tea room for all sides. So let me say, Angela Richardson wants to get on with the questions. Angela.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. For decades, Surrey Research Park in Guildford has been home to our pioneering space sector, with Surrey Satellite Technology Limited and now Surrey Space Centre's spacecraft project, which recently received £300,000 to train and recruit dedicated space engineers and create facilities to trial space-related technology. Will my right honourable friend join with me in welcoming this investment? And when his diary allows, will he come and visit Guildford to celebrate successful local innovation and job creation?
Oh my God, who the hell cares? A filler question.
Freezing temperatures, they were...
Companies get the recognition they deserve.
SNP leader Stephen Flynn.
Some real questions.
Mr. Speaker, on Monday, as households in Scotland were awakening to freezing temperatures, they were met with the news that the electricity grid had been upgraded in order to meet the power demands of the Prime Minister's new swimming pool. So may I ask him, was it whilst he was taking a leisurely dip that he decided to leave households drowning in their energy bills?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, thanks to the actions of this government, what we have provided is over £1,300 to help families with their energy
And bills gone up by how much? Was it? I think it's around more than double that.
bills over the last year. I won't want to preempt what the Chancellor is going to say later, but this is a government that is committed to continuing to help people with the cost of living, and that's what you'll hear later on.
Stephen Flynn.
You've got to wonder what planet he's on, Mr. Speaker, because for households in Scotland, energy prices haven't been frozen at £2,500. Indeed, the average bill in Scotland has been closer to £3,500, a near tripling in just under 2 years. But worse than that, the Chancellor is about to get to his feet and announce that the £400 energy rebate is about to be scrapped for everyone, not just in Scotland, but right across these aisles. So is it not the case that the Tories aren't freezing energy bills, they're looking to freeze households?
Prime Minister.
Mr. Speaker, actually, the government is delivering for people across the United Kingdom. Energy bills have been our priority, which is why over £1,000 of support, which is benefiting households in every part of our country. But he talks about delivery. It's now clear that we know, because of the SNP, that the trains don't run on time. The police are at breaking point.
Bro, have you seen the Met Police? Have you heard of Greater Manchester Police? Because I would argue they are much closer to breaking point than... I haven't heard much from any Scottish police forces in the news. So, you know, I couldn't tell you how good or how badly they are doing. But I can tell you I've read about the Met Police. And, yeah, it's not very good. I'll tell you that for free.
Police are at breaking point, and the NHS in Scotland experienced the longest ever waiting list. Mr. Speaker, that isn't even my assessment. That's what we learned in the SNP's leadership debate last week.
Aaron Bell.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Independent retailers are the lifeblood of our high streets and critical to the regeneration of our town centres, so we should cherish and celebrate the entrepreneurs who set them up and run them. With that in mind, would the Prime Minister join me in congratulating the winners of my recent competition to find Newcastle's best-loved independent shops and market stalls, namely Tony Price Quality Butchers, Mijouli's, Cheeky Cheesecakes, and the overall winner, Anasma Greek Bakery, who only opened in...
Can I thank the Prime Minister for his recent deep engagement with Northern Ireland, in particular the conclusion of the Windsor Framework, and hopefully we will see the executive restored shortly. However, that executive is facing a spiral of budget cuts, which will stop it from transforming public services on an invest-to-save basis and investing in a prosperity agenda. So will the Prime Minister and indeed the Chancellor work with the Northern Ireland parties on a financial package in order to transform Northern Ireland, accepting the need for strict conditions and a real focus on key areas such as health, education, skills and infrastructure?
Well, can I thank the honourable gentleman and his colleagues and his party for the engagement they had in the run-up to the Windsor Framework. It was helpful and I appreciated his constructive involvement. And my right honourable friend, the Northern Ireland Secretary, has been working closely and will work closely with all Northern Irish parties, leading discussions on a wide range of issues, including the public finances, because I believe what the honourable gentleman believes is that the people of Northern Ireland need and deserve effective, accountable, devolved government up and running as quickly as possible, and I hope that those talks can be constructive in leading to that aim.
Bob Blackman.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. In 2016, the current Mayor of London promised 0 strikes on London Underground. Today is the 135th day of strikes since then. Will my right honourable friend join with me in condemning those strikes that have brought misery to the travelling public in London?
Maybe you should pay workers properly.
Condemn the Mayor of London for his failure to address this.
Maybe should we condemn you for failing to address this?
Mr. Speaker, my honourable friend is absolutely right about the misery being inflicted on Londoners by the incompetent running of TfL. It's worth bearing in mind, not only do the party opposite vote against our minimum service levels, which will provide respite for the hard-working British public, that the Mayor of London, since the pandemic, has received £6 billion of additional funding for transport services. So for us to be in the situation that we find ourselves in today is simply unacceptable.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. An investigation reported in The Guardian and the BBC revealed that in the last year, on more than 450 instances, sewage was leaking into cancer wards, maternity units and A&E departments. Without urgent action, the legacy of this Conservative government on the NHS will be an image of a nurse cleaning up sewage around a patient in a crumbling hospital. Will the Prime Minister commit to that pledge of building 40 hospitals by 2030, including in West Hertfordshire, and will he establish a fund to repair those hospitals that are in a dire state of disrepair?
Well, I don't know how long it takes to build a hospital, right? I'll be honest. But it's 2023 now. So, you know, without these hospitals don't even have planning permission, as far as I'm aware. So there's no chance of them building 40 hospitals in the space of 7 years. Less than 7 years. I just cannot see it happening. With the sewage stuff, that is terrifying, especially with, you know, patients. You can't have sewage leak into waterways and things like that. Like that's insane. Like it's probably a byproduct of the amount they're letting into the rivers and things like that. But they really need to get a handle on this stuff genuinely really quickly. It's a nightmare scenario for us, and it's just getting worse.
Mr. Speaker, we are investing record sums in NHS capital to upgrade dozens of hospitals across the country, but in particular to build 40 new hospitals, and we are committed in particular to a new hospital scheme at West Hertfordshire Hospital NHS Trust as part of that programme, and the programme is working closely with the Trust on their plans in line with the approach that we have taken nationally.
Mark Plitchard.
Speaker, does the Prime Minister agree with me that agri-tech is a vital part of the UK economy, and in particular the excellent work of the Crop and Environment Research Centre at Harper Adams University in Shropshire? I know he has a busy schedule, but could he dispatch the Secretary of State to come and look at that research centre, and in particular the women leading science and maths at Harper Adams, and indeed leading the world?
Another filler question.
Well, Mr. Speaker, I agree with my honourable friend, and in particular Harper Adams is a fantastic even further.
But
Speaker, the government promised the 40 new hospitals 3 years ago, and the Prime Minister's just expressed his intention to proceed again. 2 years ago, in St Mary's Paddington Hospital serving my constituency, a ward ceiling fell in during floods, the eye hospital was closed by a fire, and the birth centre and maternity wards are threatened by structural problems. This week, Trust managers said the infrastructure is having an increasing impact on staff and patients. We just can't afford to continue to waste money on failing buildings. But the hospital is waiting for the commitment from the government for the funding under the New Hospitals programme. Will today be the day that the Prime Minister commits to that specifically?
Well, Mr. Speaker, as I said in my previous answer, the government is committed to the New Hospitals programme. We've committed record sums to NHS capital, not just for that programme, but for smaller scale upgrades across the country. And those conversations with her trust and others are happening in the same way across the country, and I look forward to those conversations continuing.
Nicky Aitken.
Mr. Speaker, governments at all levels, national and local, should always strive to deliver value for money for the taxpayers, particularly in a cost of living crisis. Therefore, does the Prime Minister share my astonishment that my local Labour-led Westminster Council voted last week to raise council tax by 2%, council tenants' rent by 7%, and increase allowances for its senior councillors by up to a staggering 45%.
I mean, when you raise your own salary like that in a cost of living crisis, it's never a good look. And I would be interested to see what their justification is for increasing it by that amount. So if anyone does know about this local council, feel free to put it in the comments.
Prime Minister, you've got to answer.
Well, Mr.
Can I just say, Prime Minister, I don't know who's giving you the advice, but take it from the chair. Please answer.
Mr. Speaker, it is disappointing to see that I think it's been just under a year that the now Labour-run Westminster Council has put its own councillors' pay ahead of everything else. I can't quite believe the figures that we heard from Honourable Friend. A staggering, an eye-watering 45% pay increase when people across our country and indeed the world are suffering cost of living pressures. It's clear, Mr. Speaker, that it's only Conservative-run councils that deliver for their residents.
I mean, that's garbage. I have a Conservative-run council in my town, and they suck. They suck. Almost bankrupted the council, spent a ton of money on a building, then they sold the building just to lease it back. They caused the end of the county council system and the borough council system because they just couldn't manage it, so it got split into two different councils because they suck. So don't tell me about Conservative councils and being competent. Our Conservative-led council was so bad that a Tory MP in Andrea Leadsom criticised the council. So you had a Conservative council being criticised by a Conservative MP. So, Rishi, mate, you're wrong.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, every child in the UK is entitled to free NHS dental treatment, but with 80% of practices not accepting children as new patients, is the Prime Minister proud of his record on our children's dental health?
Mr. Speaker, we're investing £3 billion in NHS dentistry, and because of the reforms to the contract, there will be about 10% more activity this year above contracted levels. There are 500 more dentists in the NHS today, but also, I think, almost a 45% increase in the amount of dental care being provided to children.
Eric Thomas.
Mr. Speaker, 5 years ago, £40 million of public funds were set aside for brain tumour research, but recent government figures suggest that a little as a quarter of that money has been deployed to researchers. The mechanism to distribute research funding effectively is broken. As a result, the brain tumour community has not seen the breakthroughs in treatment and survival rates that many of us believe they should have. Does my friend the Prime Minister agree with me that a unique, complex disease needs a unique response? And in what is Brain Tumour Awareness Month, will he make brain cancer a critical research priority across all cancers?
Well, can I thank my honourable friend for his thoughtful and powerful question. He's absolutely right about the importance of medical research being expedited so we can deliver better care for the people who are affected. I'll make sure that he gets a meeting with the relevant minister so we can ensure that that funding gets out to the people who need it and we can bring relief to them as quickly as we can.
Joanna Chung.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. With the encouragement of the British government, female prosecutors and female judges in Afghanistan stood up for the rule of law and for a more inclusive and equal nation. Those left behind are in mortal danger. Last year, I met with senior officials at the Foreign Office who were open to making a specific case for at least some of these women to be relocated to the United Kingdom, but nothing has happened since then. This dire situation requires a Prime Ministerial intervention. So I'm not asking to meet the Prime Minister's officials or his ministers. I'm asking him directly, will he meet with me to see what we can do for these women?
Prime Minister.
Yeah, I mean, the way, like, it's a no-brainer, really, to help some of them out. And, you know, we made promises to people in Afghanistan and we just haven't kept them. I think a lot of the people crossing the English Channel now were people that were promised refuge if they could get to the UK, and lo and behold, they are here, and we're demonising them. It's just tragic.
I'm very happy to meet with the Honourable Lady, and she will know that we take our obligations to those who helped and served in Afghanistan extremely seriously, both through the ARAP scheme and the ACRS scheme. We have already brought 20,000 refugees from Afghanistan to the UK. We've worked closely with the UNHCR.
When was the fall of Afghanistan? Was it last summer? 20,000 over, just over, was it last summer or was it 2 years ago? 22 people. That's, just wow. That's been closed this year. Just wow.
HCR and others on those legal routes, but I'd be happy to meet with her to ensure that we're targeting our compassion, our generosity on the people who most need it and not those who are coming here illegally.
Caroline, so what happens if the ones that are coming here, quote, illegally, is because they can't get here by any other means? Like, what's Big Man talking about, honestly?
Mr. Speaker, at the height of the pandemic, centre-assessed grades allowed our young people to move forward with their lives. Lara, my very brave young constituent, is now battling cancer and will not sit the GCSE exams she has worked so hard for, and could be left with only a certificate of recognition. In exceptional circumstances such as these, why can't the same principle apply? Would my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, look compassionately at this situation?
Prime Minister. Start by sending my best wishes to Lara and thanking my honourable friend for raising her case in Parliament. Of course, it's incredibly upsetting and challenging for children and young people to be diagnosed with a serious illness, and especially so close to their exams. Now, there are allowances that are made, and in the first instance, students will speak to their school or their college to make those reasonable adjustments, but I'll be happy to make sure that we work with my honourable friend to find a resolution in Lara's case.
Dr. Rupahat.
Mr. Speaker, I welcome the PM's numeracy drive, but did he know that some 7.1 million adults in England are functionally illiterate? It's often diagnosed late in life, like with TV's J Blades, if at all. So would he thank the entirely voluntary Read Easy, who are turning this round at just £250 cost per new reader, and commit to a national strategy for eradicating this problem that's costing our economy $25 billion a year in lost competitiveness?
Mr. Speaker, I agree with the Honourable Lady. Literacy and numeracy are critical for adults to be able to participate both in society and the economy.
Boris Johnson doesn't understand percentages, so you can start with him.
Happy to praise Read Easy for the work that they do. Look forward to learning more about them. But the best way to solve this problem is to ensure that our young children get the reading skills and training and education that they need. And I'm so pleased that because of the reforms introduced by this previous Conservative governments, particularly with phonics, we have now marched up the international league table and have some of the best results for reading that we've seen in a very long time.
I mean, that's fine, but it's not going to solve the problem with adult literacy problems.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.
Oh, yeah, QA, you sure the budget's at 12:30? It must be at 1:30.
More than a quarter of the economic output of this country is in sectors overseen by some of our major regulators, such as Ofwat and Ofgem. But historically, there's been very little in the way of oversight to say whether they're doing a good job or a bad job, whether they're achieving international best practice or not. So can the Prime Minister look to see what he can do to address this historical oversight and enable regulators to play their part in ensuring economic growth?
Mr. Speaker, as always, my honourable friend makes a very thoughtful point, and he's absolutely right about the importance of our regulators in driving growth, competitive investment in our economy. I know the Chancellor will have something to say on this later on, but he should rest assured that we will keep at it to make sure that there is accountability and oversight of our regulators. We all want to see more growth in our economy, and they need to play their part in delivering it.
Red Stringer.
Here's the budget announcement.
Mr. Speaker, 20 years after defeat in the Second World War, the first Japanese bullet train travelled the 300 miles from Tokyo to Osaka at 200 miles an hour. Isn't it a measure of the government's incompetence, lack of commitment to the regions, lack of commitment to infrastructure, that it is now expected that 24 years after a Conservative Transport Secretary announced that HS2 would happen, that Birmingham, Manchester and London will not be linked by that time?
With the bullet train stuff, they're saying they're going to delay the construction of HS2 in order to save taxpayers money, but it's actually going to cost us more.
Mr. Speaker, we're actually delivering the biggest rail investment. Mr. Speaker, the biggest rail investment since the Victorian era. I'll just gently point out to the honourable gentleman, compared to when Labour were last in office, the investment going into the north is 30% higher every single year under this Conservative government. We are delivering for communities across the north with more trains, more buses, more stations and more roads, because a Conservative government doesn't just talk about it, it gets on and delivers it.
Sir Robert Deal. Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I hope very much that later today we'll hear news of help for motorists and small businesses. But for motorists and small businesses in Bromley and the rest of Outer London, they're going to be hard hit later this year by the Mayor of London's stealth tax in the form of an ultra-low emission charge.
Let's leave that as a filler question. We'll jump to the budget then. We'll go to about, let's see. We're not doing too badly. Let's see if we can find anything interesting in here. So we jump to see here.
Minister's questions.
So we skip this.
This will be helpful for some people who are following our proceedings to know that.
Report today on a British economy which is proving the doubters wrong. In the autumn, we took difficult decisions to deliver stability and sound money. Since mid-October, 10-year gilt rates have fallen, debt servicing costs are down, mortgage rates are lower.
Since October, gilt rates have fallen. Is it because Liz Truss went insane and spiked them, and the only way you could actually sell the gilts was through much, much higher interest rates? And now that Liz Truss is gone and things are a lot more stable, the interest rates have fallen themselves because the Bank of England doesn't have to offer as high rates. Is that the case, Jeremy Hunt?
And inflation has peaked. The International Monetary Fund says our approach means the UK economy is on the right track. Yeah. But we remain vigilant and will not hesitate to take whatever steps are necessary for economic stability. Today, the Office for Budget Responsibility forecasts that because of changing international factors and the measures I take, the UK will not now enter a technical recession this year.
I mean, sure, we're going to be stuck at like zero growth. I think that's the only reason we avoided a technical recession is by 0% growth, which that's a big achievement, pal.
They forecast we will meet the Prime Minister's priorities to halve inflation, reduce debt and get the economy growing.
So, half inflation, you're not going to do anything to reduce inflation. Let's be real, that's going to reduce on its own. Reducing the debt, sure, whatever. I can't remember what the third thing is, but it's probably not important.
We are following the plan and the plan is working. But that's not all we've done.
Okay.
In the face of a cost of living crisis, we have demonstrated our values by protecting struggling families with a £2,500 energy price guarantee, one-off support and the uprating of benefits with inflation. Taken together, these measures are worth £94 billion over this year and next, one of the largest support packages in Europe.
Is it because we had to give so much in the energy support schemes because we're allowing ourselves to be price gouged by energy generators? I would argue that is the case, that we are paying well over the odds for energy, and so the government has to put up more money to support families because instead of doing windfall taxes and other things that actually would help the British people, you're funneling these schemes via just pure borrowing, which, okay, is fine. Well, it's not really fine, but you can't take that as a victory lap, I'm afraid.
Average is, Madam Deputy Speaker, over £3,300 of cost of living help for every household in the country. Today, we deliver the next part of our plan, a budget for growth. Not just the growth that comes when you emerge from a downturn, but long-term, sustainable, healthy growth that pays for our NHS and schools, finds jobs for young people and provides a safety net for older people all whilst making our country one of the most prosperous in the world. Prosperity with a purpose, and that is why growth is one of the Prime Minister's 5 priorities for our country. I deliver that today by removing obstacles that stop businesses investing.
That's how great Jeremy Hunt is. He's changed the path of the world. You have to respect it.
By tackling labour shortages that stop them recruiting, by breaking down barriers that stop people working, and by harnessing British ingenuity to make us a science and technology superpower.
How are you going to do that outside of Horizon? That's the real question. How are you going to do that outside of Horizon and without freedom of movement? Genuine question.
I start with the forecasts produced by Richard Hughes and his team at the Independent Office for Budget Responsibility, who I thank for their diligent work. They have looked in detail at the Prime Minister's economic priorities. The first of those is to halve inflation.
I mean, again, you're not doing anything to resolve it. That's going to happen by itself.
Inflation destroys the value of hard-earned pay, deters investment and foments industrial strife. This government remains steadfast in its support for the Independent Monetary Policy Committee at the Bank of England as it takes action to return inflation to the 2% target.
And how's it going to do that? What's the specific plan there?
Despite continuing global instability, the OBR report today that inflation in the UK will fall from 10.7% in the final quarter of last year to 2.9% by the end of 2023. That is more than halving inflation.
Okay, and what specifically are you doing to achieve this goal, or is it going to happen by itself?
High inflation, Madam Deputy Speaker, is the root cause of the strikes we've seen in recent months. We will continue to work hard to settle those disputes, but only in a way that does not fuel inflation. Part of the fall in inflation predicted by the OBR happens because of additional measures I take today. Firstly, I recognise that even though wholesale energy prices have been falling, there is still enormous pressure on family finances. Some people remain in real distress, and we should always stand ready to help when we can. So after listening to representations from Martin Lewis and other experts, I today confirm that the energy price guarantee will remain at £2,500 for the next 3 months.
It's not a ton of certainty, to be honest. That is not a ton of certainty. 3 months is not a long time.
This means the £2,500 cap for the typical household will remain in place when energy prices remain high ahead of an expected fall in prices from July. This measure will save the average family a further £160 on top of the energy support measures already announced. The second measure concerns over 4 million households on prepayment meters. They're often the poorest households, but they currently pay more than comparable customers on direct debit. Ofgem has already agreed with suppliers a temporary suspension to forced installations of prepayment meters. But today,
took you a long while to get there, though, didn't it?
Today I go further and confirm we will bring their charges in line with comparable direct debit charges.
Took you over a year to get there, Chief, didn't it?
Under a Conservative government, the energy premium paid by our poorest customers, our poorest households, is coming to an end. Next, I have listened to representations from the honourable members for East Devon, North Cornwall, Combe Valley and Central Suffolk and North Ipswich about the risk to community facilities, especially swimming pools, caused by high costs. When times are tough, such facilities...
See, if I were him, sorry, I was going to eat some chocolate. If I were him, I wouldn't mention anything about swimming pools, given the fact that the local energy grid had to upgrade their stuff because of Rishi Sunak. I would not have mentioned swimming pools if I were him.
Matter even more. So today I am providing a 63 million pound fund.
Order! We want to hear what the Chancellor of the Exchequer is actually saying. Enough. Chancellor.
Today I am providing a £63 million fund to keep our public leisure centres and pools afloat. I have also heard from my right honourable friend, the Charities Minister, and his Secretary of State about the brilliant work third sector organisations are doing to help people struggling in tough times. They can often reach people in need that central or local government cannot. So I will give his...
Is it because you guys don't try to reach certain people? Is that why you fail?
His department £100 million to support thousands of local charities and community organisations do their fantastic work. I also note the personal courage of one of my predecessors, my right honourable friend from Bromsgrove, in talking about the tragedy of suicide and the importance of preventing it. We already invest a lot in this area, but I will assign an extra £10 million over the next 2 years, nearly £1 million for every year that he's been in Parliament, to help the voluntary sector play an even bigger role in stopping families experiencing that.
I mean, across the country, that money's not going to go far. That's the problem. You can promise, 10 million, 100 million a year, but across the country, that's nothing. That's the main problem. You can say, oh, look how much money we're spending here. It's just like, okay, where's that money going to go specifically?
Tolerable heartache. My penultimate cost of living measure concerns one of our other most treasured community institutions, the Great British Pub. In December, I extended the alcohol duty freeze until the 1st of August, after which duties will go up in line with inflation in the usual way. But today I will do something that was not possible when we were in the EU, and significantly increase the generosity of draft relief, so that from the 1st of August, the duty on draft products in pubs will be up to 11 pence lower than the duty in supermarkets. It's a differential a Conservative government will maintain as part of a new Brexit pubs guarantee.
So you're telling me that outside the EU, you can lower the cost of the tax on pubs that sell the same products as supermarkets? I'm not going to go ahead and say that's malarkey because I haven't actually read specifically what he's talking about, but it does sound like malarkey. It sounds like nonsense.
Madam Deputy Speaker,
I would want to see a citation on that. I'd want to see a citation
Madam
on
Deputy
that.
Speaker, British ale is warm, but the duty on a pint is frozen. And even better, thanks to the Windsor framework negotiated by my right honourable friend the Prime Minister, that change will now apply to every pub in Northern Ireland. And finally, Madam Deputy Speaker, I've heard the representations from the Honourable Member for Stoke-on-Trent North, my right honourable friend for Witham, and my right honourable friend from South Thanet and the Sun newspaper about the impact on motorists of the planned 11 pence rise in fuel duty. I noticed the party opposite called for a freeze on this duty. Somehow they forgot to tell the British people they have voted against every single fuel duty freeze for the last 12 years.
Is it because it was tied into other things that people don't want to vote for?
Because inflation remains high, I have decided now is not the right time to uprate fuel duty with inflation or increase the duty. So here's what I'm going to do for a further 12 months. I'm going to maintain the 5p cut, and I'm going to freeze fuel duty too. That saves the average driver £100 next year and around £200 since the 5p cut was introduced.
He's pulled a George Osborne. What he's done is he's pulled a George Osborne. What he said, he said months ago we're going to do a tax increase, and then he's saying, because of our fiscal intelligence, we don't have to do that tax increase anymore. Aren't we great? So instead of causing you pain, we're going to keep things as is. That's a George Osborne move that one of my teachers explained to me back in school. So that's classic George there, which makes sense because I think him and Jeremy Hunt would be friends, given that they seem like they would be friends because they're both boring. But yeah, that's a classic George move.
Our energy price guarantee, fuel duty and duty on a pint all frozen in today's budget. That doesn't just help families, it helps the economy too, because their combined impact reduces CPI inflation by nearly 0.75% this year, lowering inflation when it is particularly high.
She's trying to spin the stats.
I now turn to the Prime Minister's second priority, which is to reduce debt. Here too, our plan is on track. Underlying debt is forecast to be 92.4% of GDP next year, then 97.3%, 94.6%, 94.8%, before falling to 94.6% in 27-28. We are meeting the debt priority. And with a buffer of £6.5 billion, it means we are meeting our fiscal rule to have debt falling as a percentage of GDP by the fifth year of the forecast. As a proportion of GDP, our debt remains lower than the USA, Canada, France, Italy and Japan. And because of the decisions I take today and the improved outlook for public finances, GDP, our debt remains lower than the USA, Canada, France, Italy and Japan.
That's fine, but it depends what you do with the debt, what you do with the money. And, France are looking at nationalising EDF, which will help the French with lower energy costs. Just because your debt is lower doesn't mean that you're doing better than anyone else. Debt inherently isn't a bad thing.
And because of the decisions I take today and the improved outlook for public finances, underlying debt in 5 years' time is now forecast to be nearly 3 percentage points of GDP lower than it was in the autumn. That means more money for our public services and a lower burden for future generations, deeply held conservative values which we put into practice today. At the autumn statement, I also announced that public sector net borrowing must be below 3% of GDP over the same period. The OBR confirmed today that we're meeting that rule with a buffer of £39.2 billion. In fact, our deficit falls in every single year of the forecast, with borrowing falling from 5.1% of GDP in 23-24 to 3.2% to 2.8% to 2.2% and 1.7% in 27-28. Even better, in the final 2 years of the forecast, our current budget is in surplus, meaning we only borrow for investment and not for day-to-day spending. Day-to-day departmental spending will grow at 1% a year on average in real terms after 24-25 until the end of the forecast period. Capital plans are maintained at the same level set at the autumn statement. We will uprate tobacco duty and we will freeze the gross gaming duty yield bands. We're also maintaining the starting rate.
Gross gaming what?
Savings and ISA subscription limits, and we'll bring forward a range of measures to tackle promoters of tax avoidance schemes. Madam Deputy Speaker, taken together, today's measures lead to a slightly lower overall tax burden for the rest of the Parliament compared to the OBR's autumn forecast. Other parties run out of money, but a Conservative government is reducing borrowing and improving our public finances. By doing so, we are on track to halve inflation, get debt falling and grow our economy, which I turn to next. Growth, Madam Deputy Speaker, is the Prime Minister's third priority and the focus of today's budget.
QA, why'd you make me watch this?
13 years ago, we inherited an economy that had crashed. But since they might want to listen to this. They might want to listen to this. Because since 2010, we've grown more than major countries like France, Italy or Japan, about the same as Europe's largest economy, Germany. We've halved unemployment, we've cut inequality, we've reduced the number of workless households by 1 million. For the first time ever, because of rises in tax thresholds made by successive Conservative chancellors, people in our country can earn £1,000 a month without paying a penny of tax or national insurance. The party opposite opposed those tax reductions, but they have helped lift 2 million people out of absolute poverty after housing costs, including 400,000 pensioners and 500,000 children. That averages 80 pensioners and 100 children lifted out of poverty for every single day we've been in office. And today we face the future with extraordinary potential. The World Bank said that of all big European countries, we are the best place to do business. Global chief executives say that apart from America and China, we are the best country to invest in.
That's
we
weird.
became
It's a weird. I don't know why they're saying this. If that's true, I genuinely am confused by it.
second country in the world to have a stock of foreign direct investment worth $2 trillion. And London has just pipped New York and 53 other global cities to be the best place in the world for female entrepreneurs. Declinists are wrong about our country for another reason, which is our strength in new industries that will shape this century. Over the last 13 years, under Conservative leadership, we have become the world's third trillion-dollar tech economy after the US and China. We've built the largest life sciences sector in Europe, producing a COVID vaccine that saved 6 million lives and a treatment that saved 1 million more.
I mean, Germany also had their own COVID vaccine, and I think the Pfizer one was better than ours, the Pfizer-BioNTech one. Our one, I think, was the worst one out of the top three. Heck, even Russia, I think, might have had a better one than us.
Our film and TV industry has become Europe's largest, with our creative industries growing at twice the rate of the economy. Our advanced manufacturing industries produce around half the world's large civil aircraft wings. And thanks to a clean energy miracle, we have become a world leader in offshore wind. Other parties talk about a green energy revolution. So I gently remind them that nearly 90% of our solar power was installed in the last 13 years, showing it's the Conservatives who fix the roof when the sun is shining. Now, let's turn to what the OBR say about our growth prospects. In November, they expected that the UK economy would enter recession in 2022 and contract by 1.4% in 23. That left many families feeling concerned about the future. But today, the OBR forecast we will not enter a recession at all this year, with a contraction of just 0.2%. And after this year, the UK economy will grow in every single year of the forecast period by 1.8% in 24, 2.5%, 2.1% and 1.9% in 27. They also expect the unemployment rate to rise by less than 1 percentage point to 4.4%, with 170,000 fewer people out of work compared to their autumn forecast. Madam Deputy Speaker, that return to growth has direct consequences for our role on the global stage. I am proud that we are giving the brave people of Ukraine more military support than anyone else in Europe. On Monday, we were able to go even further, with my right honourable friend announcing a £5 billion package of funding for the Ministry of Defence, an additional £2 billion next year and £3 billion the year after. Today, following representations from our persuasive Defence Secretary, I confirm that we will add a total of £11 billion to our defence budget over the next 5 years, and it will be nearly 2.25% of GDP by 2025. We were the first large European country to commit to 2% of GDP for defence, and we will now raise that to 2.5%. As soon as fiscal and economic circumstances allow. And following representations from the equally persuasive Minister for Veterans Affairs, I am today also increasing support for our brave ex-servicemen and women. We will provide a package worth over £30 million to increase the capacity of the Office for Veterans Affairs, support veterans with injuries returning from their service, and increase the availability of veteran housing. But to be Europe's biggest defender of democracy, we must build Europe's
anti-protest bill threatening to leave the ECHR, passing bills that get condemnation from the United Nations. Yes, we are a country that is the Europe's leading democracy, 100%.
Most dynamic economy. That means tackling our long-standing productivity issues, including two in particular which I address today: lower business investment and higher economic inactivity than other countries. Too often, companies struggle to recruit, and even when they do, output per employee is lower. So today I set out the 4 pillars of our industrial strategy to address these issues. Colleagues will know from my Bloomberg speech, they all conveniently start with the letter E: enterprise, employment, education and everywhere. I start, Madam Deputy Speaker, with everywhere. Our measures, well, they may not want to level up growth across the United Kingdom, but we do. This government was elected on a mandate to level up. We have already allocated nearly £4 billion in over 200 projects across the country through the first 2 rounds of the Levelling Up Fund. A third round will follow. Since we started focusing on levelling up, 70% of the growth in salaried jobs has come from outside London and the South East. And today we take further steps. Canary Wharf and the Liverpool Docks were 2 outstanding regeneration projects that happened under a previous Conservative government. I pay tribute to Lord Heseltine for making them happen because they transformed the lives of thousands of people. They showed what's possible when entrepreneurs, government and local communities come together. So today I announce that we will deliver 12 new investment zones, 12 potential Canary Wharfs. In England, we've identified the following areas as having the potential to host one: West Midlands, Greater Manchester, the North East, South Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, East Midlands, Teesside and once again Liverpool. There will also be at least one in each of Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. To be chosen, each area must identify a location where they can offer a bold and imaginative partnership between local government and a university or research institute in a way that catalyses new innovation clusters. If the application is successful, they'll have access to £80 million of support for a range of interventions including skills, infrastructure, tax reliefs and business rates retention. Working together with our formidable Levelling Up Secretary, I also want to give some further support to levelling up areas under the E of everywhere. First, I will invest over £200 million in high-quality local regeneration projects across England, including the regeneration of Tipton Town Centre and the Marsden New Mills redevelopment scheme. I'm also announcing...
I'm tempted to 1.5 speed or just kill the stream, to be honest.
I'm also announcing a further £161 million for regeneration projects in mayoral combined authorities and the Greater London Authority, and I will make over £400 million available for new levelling up partnerships in areas that include Redcar and Cleveland, Blackburn, Oldham, Rochdale, Mansfield, South Tyneside and Bassetlaw.
If it's too fast, I'll just
Having listened to the case for better local transport infrastructure from many honourable members, I can announce a second round of the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlements allocating £8.8 billion over the next 5-year funding period.
Difficult to concentrate.
And following a wet, then cold winter, I have also received particularly strong representations from my honourable friends from North Devon, South West Devon and Newton Abbot, as well as Councillor Peter Martin from my own constituency, about the curse of potholes.
Well, you guys have been doing a rubbish job dealing with potholes. So.
The spending review allocated £500 million every year to the Potholes Fund, but today I have decided to increase that fund by a further £200 million next year to help local communities tackle this problem.
Again, how far is that going to go?
For Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland, This budget delivers not only a new investment zone but an additional £320 million for the Scottish Government, £180 million for the Welsh Government and £130 million for the Northern Ireland Executive as a result of Barnett's consequentials. On top of which in Scotland I can announce up to £8.6 million of targeted funding for the Edinburgh Festivals, as well as £1.5 million funding to repair the Clodagh Bridge. I will provide £20 million of funding for the Welsh Government to restore the Holyhead Breakwater, and in Northern Ireland I'm allocating up to £3 million to extend the Tackling Paramilitarism programme and up to £40 million to extend further and higher education participation. But, Madam Deputy Speaker, for levelling up to truly...
If you look at the size of some of the potholes that we have, they look like a meteor's hit it.
...succeed, we need to unleash the civic entrepreneurship that's only possible when elected local leaders are able to fund and deliver solutions to their own challenges. That means giving them responsibility for local economic growth and the benefit from the upside when it happens. So this government will consult on transferring responsibilities for local economic development from local enterprise partnerships to local authorities from April 24. I will also boost mayors' financial autonomy by agreeing multi-year single settlements for the West Midlands and Greater Combined Manchester Authority in the next spending review, something I intend to roll out for all mayoral areas over time. I've also agreed a new long-term commitment so that they can retain 100% of their business rates, something I also hope to expand to other areas. Investment zones, regeneration projects, levelling up partnerships, local transport infrastructure and business rates retention, more control for local communities over their economic destiny, so we will level up wealth and opportunity everywhere. Yeah. Today's priority is the Prime Minister's promise to grow the economy.
I've heard that line before.
We've talked about making that growth happen everywhere, so I now move on to my second E, enterprise.
Oh my
we
God.
need to be, well, this has never been something of interest to the Labour Party, but the Conservatives...
He's a boo, this man. Honestly, he's got minus riz.
We are Europe's
It's
most
minus
dynamic
riz.
enterprise
What the
economy.
hell? What is this?
And under a
What have I done to deserve this?
Conservative
QA, why would you
that
make
is
me watch this?
exactly what's been happening.
QA,
Since
QA, I
2010,
hold you personally responsible for
we have
this. I hope
1
you're still
million
here.
more businesses in the UK, a bigger increase than Germany, France or Italy.
Oh my God.
But I want another million and another million after that. So today I bring forward enterprise measures in these three areas to lower business taxes, reduce energy costs and support our growth industries. So let's start with business taxation. Conservatives know the importance of a competitive tax regime. We already have lower levels of business taxation than France, Germany, Italy or Japan. But I want us to have the most pro-business, pro-enterprise tax regime anywhere. Even after the corporation tax rise this April, we will have the lowest headline rate in the G7, lower than any period under the last Labour government. Only 10% of companies will pay the full 25% rate. But even at 19%, our corporation tax did not incentivise investment as effectively as countries with higher headline rates. The result is less capital investment and lower productivity than countries like France and Germany. We've already taken measures to address this. For larger business, we've had the super deduction, introduced by my right honourable friend, the Prime Minister, which ends this month. For smaller businesses, we've increased the annual investment allowance to £1 million, meaning 99% of all businesses can deduct the full value of all their investment from that year's taxable profits. If the super deduction was allowed to end without a replacement, we would have fallen down the international league tables on tax competitiveness and damaged growth. As a Conservative, I could not allow that to happen.
No, you're just like damaging the economy.
So today
in other
I
ways.
can announce we will introduce a new policy of full capital expensing for the next 3 years with an intention to make it permanent as soon as we can responsibly do so. That means that every single pound a company invests in IT equipment, plant or machinery can be deducted in full and immediately from taxable profits.
Can they not do that already? Because those are just business expenses. So you can just nix that against, whatever profit you would have made. Is this what's he talking about? Like, are you going to say we made 100 million in profit, but we spent 50 million on keyboards, so we're going to claim that as a tax deductible? Like, it's a business expense. It's already tax deductible. It makes no sense.
It is a corporation tax cut worth an average of £9 billion a year for every year that it's in place. And its impact on the economy will be huge. The OBR says it will increase in business investment by 3% for every year it's in place. This decision makes us the only major European country with full expensing and gives us the joint most generous capital allowance regime of any advanced economy. Madam Deputy Speaker, I understand the party opposite is reviewing business taxes. Let me save them the bother. They put them up, we cut them.
Him versus Starmer would have been the most disastrous thing for this country. Honestly,
I also want to make our taxes.
They both have the same.
I also want to make our taxes
lines.
more competitive in our life science
I
and
think they're the
creative
same
industry
scriptwriter,
sectors.
I'll be honest.
In the autumn, I said I'd return with a more robust R&D tax credit scheme for smaller research-intensive companies. So today, I'm introducing an enhanced credit, which means that if a qualifying small or medium-sized business spends 40% or more of their total expenditure on R&D, they'll be able to claim a credit worth £27 for every £100 they spend. That means an eligible cancer drug company spending £2 million on research and development will receive over £500,000 to help them develop breakthrough treatments. It's a
I think Ireland already allows you to offset your R&D against your taxable amount, so you can already I can't remember the exact rules around it, but it's something to do with the R&D and tax-free allowance.
£0.8 billion package of support helping 20,000 cutting-edge companies who day by day are turning Britain into a science superpower. And this government's audio-visual tax reliefs have helped make our film and TV industry the biggest in Europe. Only last month, Pinewood announced...
Are we the biggest in Europe because every other country has English as a second language? Rather than anything that you have actually done? I think that would make more sense given how well spoken English is in Europe, or the rest of Europe. Probably that's the reason why the film industry does so well in the UK. Probably.
Announced an expansion which will bring another 8,000 jobs to the UK. To give even more momentum to this critical sector, I'll introduce an expenditure credit with a rate of 34% for film, high-end television and video games, and 39%
video
for
games.
the animation
You love to
and
see
children's TV sectors. I'll maintain the qualifying threshold for high-end television at £1 million. And because our theatres, orchestras and museums do such a brilliant job at attracting tourists to London and the UK, I'll extend for another 2 years their current 45% and 50% reliefs. Madam Deputy Speaker, an enterprise economy needs low taxes, but it also needs cheap and reliable energy. We have already announced billions of support to help businesses reduce their energy bills through the Energy Bills Relief Scheme and the Energy Bills Discount Scheme.
So all you've done is more socialism. Other countries have lower energy because they produce more, and they have more storage. We are helping businesses by borrowing money. It makes no sense, honestly.
We've appointed Dame Alison Rose, Chief Executive of NatWest, to co-chair our National Energy Efficiency Task Force and help deliver our national ambition to reduce energy use by 15%. And to support her efforts, I'll extend the Climate Change Agreement Scheme for 2 years to allow eligible businesses £600 million of tax relief on energy efficiency measures. But the long-term solution is not subsidy, but security. That means investing in domestic sources of energy that fall outside Putin or any autocrat's control. We are world leaders in renewable energy, so today I want to develop another plank of our green economy, carbon capture, usage and storage. I'm allocating up to £20 billion of support for the early development of CCUS, starting with projects from our east coast to Merseyside to North Wales, paving the way for CCUS everywhere across the UK as we approach 2050. That will support up to 50,000 jobs, attract private sector investment, and help capture 20 to 30 million tonnes of CO2 per year by 2030.
Carbon capture,
we
utilisation,
have
storage.
increased the proportion of electricity generated from renewables from under 10% when we came into office to nearly 40%. But because the wind doesn't always blow and the sun doesn't always shine, even under the Conservatives,
the sun never sets on
Deputy Speaker,
British Empire.
we will need another critical source of cheap and reliable energy,
Nuclear.
and that is nuclear. Now, there have been no more powerful advocates for this than the Honourable Member for Innismon, Copeland, Hartlepool and Workington. They rightly say that increasing nuclear capacity is vital to meet our net zero obligations. So to encourage private sector investment into our nuclear programme, I today confirm that, subject to consultation, nuclear power will be classed as environmentally sustainable in our green taxonomy. That will give it access to the same investment incentives as renewable energy.
I mean, that's nonsense because they're not the same.
And alongside
nuclear is inherently more dangerous. You want to focus more on renewables than you would on nuclear energy. Use that to supplement the renewable energy. You wouldn't want to use that as your primary source. Treating it as the same makes no sense.
Will come more public investment. In the autumn statement, I announced the first state-financed investment in nuclear for a generation, a £700 million investment in Sizewell C. Today I can announce 2 further commitments to deliver our nuclear ambitions.
Isn't it like over a decade Sizewell still hasn't been built yet?
Firstly, following representations from our Energetic Energy Security Secretary, I am announcing the launch of Great British Nuclear, which will bring down costs and provide opportunities across the nuclear supply chain to help provide 1/4 of our electricity by 2050. And secondly, it's so good to hear Labour in favour of nuclear energy. Just a shame they never did any.
I mean, I think they did, but the problem was, technology's improved a lot since back then. I think they did approve of some nuclear power plants. I'll have to check.
And secondly, I'm launching the first competition for small modular reactors. It will be completed by the end of this year, and if demonstrated as viable, we will co-fund this exciting new technology. Finally, under the E of enterprise, Madam Deputy Speaker, I come to our innovation economy, a central area of national competitive advantage for the United Kingdom. Over the weekend, I worked night and day with the Prime Minister and the Governor of Bank of England to protect the deposits of thousands of our most cutting-edge companies. We successfully secured the sale of the UK arm of Silicon Valley Bank to HSBC.
We know, you mentioned
so the future of those companies is now safe in the hands of Europe's biggest and one of its most creditworthy banks. But those events show that we need to build a larger, more diverse financing system where the benefits of investment in high-growth firms are available to more investors. So I will return in the autumn statement with a plan to deliver that. It will include measures to unlock productive investment from defined contribution pension funds and other sources.
This budget has been really boring. I don't think it's a bit of a nothing budget. I think the autumn one will be the important one because there'll be 2 just before the election, or possibly 3. But I think the autumn one is going to have to make people be financially better, I think.
The London Stock Exchange a more attractive place to list, and complete our response to the challenges created by the US Inflation Reduction Act. However, when it comes to our innovation industries, there are 2 areas I want to make progress on today. Nigel Lawson made the City of London one of the world's top financial centres by competitive deregulation. With our Brexit autonomy
Oh, no.
We can do the
Here
same
we
for
go.
our high-growth sectors.
Here we go.
So today I want to reform the regulations around medicines and medical technologies.
Oh, no.
We are lucky with the MHRA to have one of the most respected drugs regulators in the world, indeed the very first anywhere to license a COVID vaccine. From 2024, they will move to a different model, which will allow rapid, often near automatic sign-off for medicines and technologies already approved by trusted regulators in other parts of the world, such as the United States, Europe...
I would not trust the United States regulator. I would definitely not trust the United States regulator, given how many cancer cases they have with products like Roundup. I think Johnson & Johnson were in trouble over some of their products as well more recently. I would not trust the US regulator. Trusting the US regulator is for idiots.
Japan. At the same time, they will set up a swift new approval process for the
So you're just stealing other people's work. You're not going to see why it's been regulated and why it's been allowed or not allowed. You're saying, all right, the Americans allow it, we should be fine, or the Japanese allow it, it should be fine. Japan I have a bit more faith in, but the Americans, no. I'm sorry.
Cutting-edge medicines and devices to ensure the UK becomes a global centre for their development. And with an extra £10 million of funding over the next 2 years, they will put in place the quickest, simplest regulatory approval in the world for companies seeking rapid market access. We are proud of the life science sector, which received more inward investment than any in Europe last year. Today's change will make the UK an even more exciting place to invest, using our Brexit freedoms and speeding up access for NHS patients to the very newest drugs.
I don't know, it seems a bit dodgy.
Today, with our talented Science, Innovation and Technology Secretary, I also take measures to strengthen our position in artificial intelligence, where the UK hosts 1/3 of all European companies. I'm accepting all 9 of the digital technology recommendations made by Sir Patrick Vallance in the review I asked him to do in the autumn statement. That means I can report to the House that we will launch an AI sandbox to trial new, faster approaches to help innovators get cutting-edge products to market. We'll work at pace with the Intellectual Property Office to provide clarity on IP rules so that generative AI companies can access the material they need. And we'll ask Sir Patrick's successor, Dame Angela McLean, to report before the summer on options around the growth duty for regulators. Because AI needs computing horsepower, I today commit around £900 million of funding to implement the recommendations of the Independent Future of Compute review for an exascale computer. The power needed by AI's complex...
Does he even know what he's talking about, an exascale computer? Does he know what any of this stuff actually means? Like, genuine question. Like, what components it needs and why? Like, is it... It just feels like he has no idea what he's talking about.
Algorithms can also be provided by quantum computing. So today we'll publish a quantum strategy which will set out our vision to be a world-leading quantum-enabled economy by 2033 with a research and innovation programme totalling £2.5 billion. I also want to encourage the best AI research to happen in the UK, so we'll award a prize of £1 million every year for the next 10 years to the person or team that does the most groundbreaking British AI research. The world's first stored programme computer was built at the University of Manchester in 1948 and was known as the Manchester Baby. 75 years on, the baby has grown up, so I will call this new National AI Award the Manchester Prize in its honour. Madam Deputy Speaker, we want the UK to be... We want the UK to be the best place in Europe for companies to locate, invest and grow. So today's enterprise measures strengthen our technology and life science sectors, invest in energy security, and for 3 years, but I hope permanently, cut corporation tax by £9 billion a year to give us the best investment incentives of any advanced economy. An enterprise economy can only grow if it can hire the people it needs. Which brings me to my third pillar, after everywhere and enterprise. I said it was a growth budget, Madam Deputy Speaker, and we are talking about the E of employment. I'm going to talk about a difficult topic for the party opposite now. Because Brexit was a decision by the British people to
That
change...
you were against Brexit, Chief. Now you're celebrating it. What's going on?
Our economic model.
You were against it.
In that historic vote, our country decided to move from a model based on unlimited low-skill migration to one based on high wages and high skills. Today, we show how we will deliver that with a major set of reforms. The OBR say it is the biggest positive supply-side intervention they have ever recognised in their forecast. We have around 1 million vacancies in the economy. But excluding students, there are over 7 million adults of working age who are not in work. That's a potential pool of 7 people for every vacancy. Conservatives believe work is a virtue. We agree with the road haulage king Eddie Stobart, who said the only place success comes before work is the dictionary. So today I bring forward reforms to remove the barriers that stop people who want to from working. And I start with over 2 million people who are inactive due to a disability or long-term sickness. Thanks to the reforms courageously introduced by the Right Honourable Member for Chingford and Woodford Green, the number of disabled people in work has risen by 2 million since 2013. But even after that, we could fill half the vacancies in the economy
This is not the
with
childcare
people
subsidy.
who say they would like to work despite being inactive due to sickness or disability. With Zoom, Teams and new working models that make it easier to work from home, this is possible now more than ever. So for that reason, the ever-diligent Work and Pensions Secretary...
Businesses want people to go back in the office, so Zoom, Teams and the other one won't help that much.
...today takes the next step in his groundbreaking work on tackling economic inactivity. I thank him for that, and today we publish a white paper on disability benefits reform. It is the biggest change to our welfare system in a decade. His plans will abolish the work capability assessment in Great Britain and separate benefit entitlement from an individual's ability to work. As a result, disabled benefit claimants will always be able to seek work without fear of losing financial support. Today, I'm going further by announcing that in England and Wales, after listening to representations from the Centre for Social Justice and others, we will fund a new programme called Universal Support. This is a new voluntary employment scheme for disabled people where the government will spend up to £4,000 a person to help them find appropriate jobs and put in place the support they need. It will fund 50,000 places every single year. We also want to help those who are forced to leave work because of a health condition such as a back pain or a mental health issue. We should give them support before they end up leaving their job. So working with our Health Secretary, I'm announcing a £400 million plan to increase the availability of mental health and musculoskeletal resources and expand the individual placement and support scheme. And because occupational health provided by employers has a key role to play, I'll also bring forward 2 new consultations on how to improve its availability and double the funding for the small company subsidy pilot. There's another group that deserve particular attention, which is children in care. They too should be given all possible help to make a normal working life possible when they reach adulthood.
Is that the only thing you
Often
care
they
about with
depend
kids in care?
on foster families who do a brilliant job. So today I'm nearly doubling the qualifying care relief threshold to £18,140, which will give a tax cut to a qualifying carer worth an average of £450 a year. I'll also increase the funding we provide to the Staying Close programme by 50% to help more care leavers into employment, and I'll support young people with special educational needs and disabilities with a £3 million pilot expansion of the Department for Education supported internship programme to help those people transition from education into the workplace. Madam Deputy Speaker, no civilised society can ignore the contribution that can be made by those with challenging family circumstances, a long-term illness or a disability. So today we remove the barriers we can with reforms that strengthen our society as well as strengthening our economy. The next set of employment reforms affects those on universal credit without a health condition who are looking for work or on low earnings. There are more than 2 million job seekers in this group, more than enough to fill every vacancy in the economy. Independence is always better than dependence, which is why a Conservative government believes
still going.
More work coach support alongside a more intensive conditionality regime.
Sorry, we're going to kill the
of
stream here. I
workers I
thought
want
he
to
was done.
support are those aged over 50.
But he looks like
My
he's,
younger officials have termed
he's still,
these people
he's
older
still going.
workers, although as a 56-year-old...
I'm going to end up falling asleep on stream. Like this man is just, oh my god, he's so boring. Oh. Him versus Starmer would be the ultimate battle of who is the best sleep aid. My man's actually putting me to sleep here. I've got editing to do. I've got a video project to put together. So yeah, we're gonna leave it there. I think I'll probably have to sort everything out later because my man's hitting me with 3 Z's at this point. God damn! So I wasn't that active in that one. He's numbed my brain. It's numbed my brain. It's just, QA never asked me to cover a budget again. Yeah, just don't never ask me to cover a budget again. I don't want to hear it. I've done my time here. This was painful. God damn, guys. I'll see you. I'll see you guys next time because this is. Oh my god, I need some coffee. All right, bye.